I love using my graphite drawing pencils to create drawings, and I bet you do too. But there are two major problems when it comes to graphite drawings. The first is graphite is actually a dark gray and not black. No matter how hard we push it, we'll never be able to create black, true black, with a graphite pencil. Now, the second obvious issue with graphite drawing is that graphite drawings sometimes have a shine associated with them. Graphite is inherently a shiny medium, so graphite drawings in the end are a little bit shiny. But thankfully, there are a couple products on the market that will help to eliminate that graphite shine and also make our blacks a little bit blacker. And in this video, I'm going to share one of those products with you. Hello there everyone, Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com. Have you ever created a graphite drawing and noticed it was super shiny when you were finished, and it was incredibly frustrating when you looked at the drawing from a certain angle and all you saw was the reflection of the light? Well, this is something called graphite shine. A couple of companies have put some products on the market that will help to reduce graphite shine, but also make the blacks in graphite drawing a little bit darker, since graphite is actually a gray medium. In this video, we're going to create a drawing using some of those pencils, and we're going to make some comparisons with this pencil with traditional graphite pencils. Now, if you're brand new to the channel, or if you haven't done so yet, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel, and also click on the notification bell so you're notified when we upload new videos like this one. And if you want to take your drawing and painting skills a little bit further, there is a membership program over at thevirtualinstructor.com, which includes all of our drawing and painting courses on a broad variety of drawing media and subject matter, weekly live lessons, which are all recorded and stored in our vault. So if you're a member, you can go back and watch our live lessons from years past, and weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute, and a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers. If you want to learn more about our program, I'll leave a link in the description below. You can go check it out. Everyone starts out with a week-long trial for free. If you want to check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks for free, I'll leave a link in the description below for that as well, and you can go check those out. Now, let's talk about graphite drawing, specifically these pencils here. These are Mars Lumograph Black pencils by Staedtler. Staedtler, of course, is one of the most reputable brands out there for drawing products, and I love their products, and I've used them on many occasions. In fact, I love Staedtler products, and I found these pencils and started using them during our last season of Getting Sketchy, which was season 7. I'll leave a link in the description below to our season 7 recap, so you can go back and look at all the drawings I created for Getting Sketchy. But I decided it was time at the end of season 7 to go a little bit deeper with these pencils and create a drawing where I didn't have a time frame of 45 minutes, so I could complete a complete drawing and take my time. And during the process, I learned some things about the pencils, and in this video, I'm going to share what I learned about these pencils and why I like them so much. But first, we're going to do a little bit of a comparison between these pencils and traditional graphite pencils, and I'm going to be comparing them to my favorite wooden graphite pencils by Derwent. Now here's a look at my Staedtler black pencils here, and inside of my case, I've got 6 pencils. There is an HB pencil, 2B, a 4B pencil, a 6B pencil, a 7B pencil, and an 8B pencil. And as you can tell, these are mostly the darker values. Now, of course, for comparison purposes, we'll make a few swatches here with the traditional graphite pencils. Again, these are Derwent graphite pencils on the top, and at the bottom you can see we've got the black pencils by Staedtler. You'll notice that the black pencils are noticeably blacker, of course, as they should be, but you'll also notice that they are less shiny as well. If we take the paper and bend it, we can still see there's a little bit of shine, especially with the lighter pencils, but the darker pencils shine considerably less. This is due to a higher concentration of carbon content in the black pencils. They're actually not called graphite pencils at all, and of course that carbon content is making those pencils a lot darker and a lot blacker, and also reducing the shine. Now here we could take a look at how these 2 different types of pencils blend. On the left we have the Derwent pencils, these are the graphite pencils, and on the right we have the Staedtler black pencils, and you can see both pencils blend relatively well on the surface. The paper that I'm using here is Stonehenge warm white paper, which is 100% cotton. Now let's take a look at how these 2 different types of pencils erase using a kneaded eraser. You can see that the graphite is a little bit easier to lift than the black pencils on the right, but the black pencil is still erasable, just to a lesser degree, especially with the kneaded eraser. Now let's switch over to a vinyl eraser. I'm using a Tombow mono eraser here for this. And as you can see, the 6B pencil erases relatively easy. There's a little bit of residue left. We have similar results here with the black pencil, but I am vigorously erasing here. So I'm using a little bit more force, so a little bit more effort is involved there. And here, a bit of erasing with the electric eraser. And as you can see, again, the 6B is being removed. The graphite, of course, is being removed. And we have similar results here with black pencil, but again, a little bit harder to erase with black pencil. Again, that's due, in my opinion, to the carbon content in the pencil. Now, these pencils are nice and smooth. They feel a little bit different than graphite. They feel a little bit closer to using a colored pencil. Again, I do feel like this is due to the carbon content. So if you've ever used a colored pencil on drawing paper, you know how that feels. It definitely feels a little bit more waxy, and these pencils have that type of feel when you're moving them across the drawing paper. Now that we've had a quick look at how these pencils behave and how they compare with traditional graphite pencils, let's go ahead and create a drawing from start to finish using these pencils along with some white charcoal on gray drawing paper. Now for this drawing, I worked on Strathmore gray toned drawing paper here, and one of the combinations of media that I really like to work with is graphite and white charcoal on gray paper. This allows me to push the value range outward. So essentially I can start with a neutral value, the gray, and add both darks and lights to build out a full range of value. But of course, one of my complaints with using traditional graphite pencils is the graphite shine and the fact that traditional graphite pencils will never get totally black. So this is one of the things that I like about these black pencils is that they will get black, and it also reduces the graphite shine. So that's why I'm using this combination of media here. Now you can see here I'm starting out the sketch like I would any other ordinary sketch here, basically focusing on the shapes that I see that make up the bird, and these include shapes of both dark and light value, and also the shapes of the different parts of the bird, like the eye, the beak, the branch, the talons, and so on. And I'm doing this complete drawing using only the black pencil, so there's no graphite pencil used at all in the development of this drawing, just the black pencils by Staedtler. So I'm being very careful here with my initial marks. They're very light at the beginning, but once I get a little bit more confident, I put a little bit more pressure on the pencil, so the marks are a little bit darker. But relatively speaking, I'm using a fairly light mark for the initial sketch, and I'm starting with the HB pencil here as well. Now, once I've got some of the basic contours in place, we're ready to start applying the material with a little bit more vigor. So we're going to be developing the range of value, and I'm starting here at the top of the picture plane simply because I'm going to be working mainly from the top to the bottom as I develop the drawing. I'm going to take each section of the subject one at a time, and so I'm going to develop an area before moving on to the next, and I'm going to be careful with the palm of my hand as well. Even though these pencils will smear or smudge less than traditional graphite pencils, they still do smudge, so you do have to be mindful of where you're positioning the palm of your hand. You can see here I've started with the black pencil, and then I've gone in with a bit of the white charcoal as well. Just like with the combination of white charcoal and traditional graphite, the white charcoal material does not cover over the top of the graphite material. So you do have to think about your lighter values as you're developing a drawing like this when you're mixing the media with the white charcoal and, of course, the black pencils. You can always go back over the top of the white charcoal. So the black pencils cover over the top of the white charcoal relatively easily, but the reverse of this is not true. So you do need to really think about where you're going to be laying those light values and where you're going to be laying those dark values. Now, of course, one of the things that was appealing to me with this particular image is the contrast that happens between the lights and the darks. And I felt like this was a really good subject here to explore the combination of media that I'm working here with, and of course using these pencils with a little bit more of an in-depth drawing. So I'm concentrating on both adding the light values on the right side and the dark values on the left side, but you'll notice that I'm being careful that I don't get too dark too quickly with my applications. And the same thing's true about getting too light with your applications with the white charcoal, even though that's a lot easier to fix if you actually if you accidentally go too light with your light values, but it's a little bit harder to reverse making values a little bit too dark. So I'm starting with kind of light to medium applications, and then as I get more confident in the value relationships, that's when I start to push the values a little bit darker. Now you can see a blending stump or a blending tool works great with this medium. It blends predictably, and you can still erase and lift up. So I've got a little bit of the material in place, and at this point I'm working with the 2B pencil, but you can see even with a vinyl eraser going in there, you can still lift out and erase some of the material once you've got it in place. But again, if you put too much pressure on the pencil, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to erase, obviously. Now, just like I would with any drawing, I'm considering the texture, and the key to creating the illusion of texture in a drawing, of course, lies in your relationships of values and the directional strokes that you make. So those are probably the two most important factors when dealing with texture. So I'm strongly considering the value relationships, what values are next to each other, and of course value is the darkness or lightness of a color. So we're looking for light values, which are tints, and dark values, which are shades, and also of course the midtones or middle values that we're dealing with. But I'm also considering the directional stroke making in the process. So I'm thinking about how these feathers grow out from the body, and of course that's going to determine the directional strokes that I make with the pencil, and of course that combination of the value relationships and the directional strokes leads to the illusion of texture. Now at this point we're starting to see a little bit of that contrast come through in the drawing, where we have the light side of the body of the bird and the darker side of the body of the bird as well. And you can also see that I am working my way down from the top to the bottom. And since I'm right-handed at this point, I've worked a little bit further down on the branch, but now I'm going to be working from the left to the right, again trying to keep the palm of my hand out of the way of the drawing as much as possible. So even down here on the branch, the process remains the same, laying in some of those dark and middle values with a light touch, and then adding those light values. A little bit of blending occurs right after that. That's going to work some of the material into the tooth or texture of the paper. And then on top of that, additional applications are made with a little bit more of a heavier hand. So we can push that contrast in value, adding some of those lighter values, also some of those darker values, so we have that full range that we need. Now, like with any drawing, while I want this drawing to be representational, I'm not tied too much to the reference, although it might be hard to tell that at this point. So I'm picking up information from the reference regarding the texture, the patterns that I see that can translate into the texture of the branch, and then basically just translating those patterns that I see into the drawing. So every little single mark that I see in the photo reference is not necessarily included in the drawing, but rather the suggestions that I'm getting from the photo reference are what I'm including in the drawing. So if we try to go into every little spot on that branch and try to translate that into the drawing, it would drive us crazy, of course. So we're just picking up clues basically from the reference and including that information into the drawing. Now the branch of course is round, so not only am I making horizontal strokes or strokes that flow along the branch horizontally, but also curved strokes that flow almost vertically around the branch. So the combination of both the horizontal and vertical strokes, which are slightly curved, will lead to the illusion of the form and texture of the branch. Now, of course, as we continue to work to the middle part of the drawing, we're still seeing the same light source, obviously. So that means that we're going to still see some strong shapes of cast shadow and also some stronger areas of core shadow and highlight on the talons, for example, and some of those shadows cast on the branch as well. Now, one of the things that I've noticed about these pencils is that they do seem to accentuate the tooth or texture of the paper, maybe slightly more than traditional graphite pencils. Of course, this can be alleviated if that's not the desired look by using a blending stomp, just like you would with a graphite pencil. But it is something to be aware of, that these pencils, for whatever reason, do show a little bit more of the texture of the paper, which could be a positive or a negative. Now, another thing to note is, even though I've been fairly careful with keeping the palm of my hand out of the way of the drawing, you might notice that there is less smudging that happens with these pencils. With traditional graphite pencils, of course, especially the softer ones, the 4B, 6B, and so on, it's really, really easy to smear or smudge your drawing by accident. But in this particular case, I'm not really noticing that happening as much with these pencils. Obviously, they blend and smudge with a blending stomp or any other blending tool, but not so much with the palm of your hand. Again, I'm being very careful here, of course, but even when I'm careful with the traditional graphite pencils, if I'm not using something to protect the palm of my hand, there's usually a smudge here or there. But of course, that didn't happen in this particular case. So that might be another advantage that these pencils have over traditional graphite pencils. Now, of course, with a very high contrast drawing like this, these pencils work really well because we get more contrast because they're blacker. And of course, if we can go a little bit darker with our darkest values, and those are positioned next to lighter values, of course, the contrast is going to be a little bit stronger. So that's another reason why I think that this particular subject was a good subject to explore with this combination of media. You'll also notice that there is some mixing that occurs between the black pencils and the white charcoal pencil, especially in the areas that are smudged. And these areas produce a nice cooler gray, and we can see that it's a cooler gray when we compare it to the warmer gray of the paper. Now, as we're adding these finishing touches, I should point out that I did not use any pencil darker than a 4B for this drawing. So the 4B black pencil was fairly dark here, and these blacks are translating a little bit blacker than they would be if I used traditional graphite pencils. And here's one final look at the completed drawing using Staedtler black pencils and white charcoal. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to pick up a couple of things here and there. Remember, if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click on that notification bell. There's a link to our membership program in the description below. If you want to take your drawing and painting skills to another level, I highly suggest our program. Thanks again for watching this video. And as always, I wish you all the very best in your artistic success.